Hi, this is Mr. West, it's more stylish, and today I'm dealing with this pretty tough question, to be fair, about the consequences of William I's policy of normalisation. Okay, now first of all, it's a difficult topic. It's not something that people instantly remember, so that's why I've picked it to have a look at, and it's not a particularly straightforward answer, so let's see what we think. First of all, we've got this question: what was Normanisation? And this is straight from the textbook. It means bringing the church completely under Norman control and making reforms that brought the English church into line with the Norman church. Now, there's a temptation to think that at this time, because it's before the Reformation, that everything is ruled by the Pope is the same. But clearly there's some great differences between how English church is run and how the Norman church is run. And the aim of Normanisation, okay, or what it is to make these two churches very, very similar, okay, or the same, really, okay? Okay, so why then did William want to Normanise the English church? Now, this is all about control, okay? That's the key word. If I was going to write anything on here, I'd write control. It's about control, okay? And there's several aspects of that. First of all, Archbishop Stigand is in Anglo-Saxon England before William's arrival. In 1066, he's 70 years old, he's extremely powerful, and he's been a royal advisor for decades. But the popes criticised him for two things, really, okay? This idea of pluralism, being bishop in more than one area, basically having more than one job. And not only did he have more than one job, he had the two wealthiest bishoprics in England, in Bishop of Winchester and Archbishop of Canterbury. So he didn't, not only was he a pluralist, but he got the two wealthiest ones, okay? Also accused of simony, which is giving out jobs of in the church in return for money. So like almost a bit like backhanders or bribery. You know, I'll give you this job if you give me some money. And also supporting a rival pope to the official pope in Rome, okay? So there's the issues there that William's got, and he basically wants to get rid of Stigand, okay, for several reasons, partly for those reasons that I've just outlined, and also because he wants to be seen as someone who's legitimate and who's supported by the Pope, okay? But that being said, he has to balance that with the fact that he doesn't want the Pope's influence to increase in England, okay? That's one of the key aims, and by Normanisation, he hopes that that won't happen. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? Obviously, it's about control, generally, and also about controlling the church in England. So let's get back to the question. Okay, so the main consequence of William I's policy of Normanisation was increased control of the church in England. How far do you agree? Now, you don't have to agree with me, okay, but what I've done is I've offered a line of reasoning to go through. So I've said the main consequence of Normanisation was to increase William's control and legitimacy in England. Remember, one of William's key aims upon taking the throne is not just to take it by force, but to really show people that he's the legitimate heir to England, okay, and that he's got it in the right way. Okay, and therefore, if he can get rid of Stigand and say that he's no good, basically, William can portray the whole English church as corrupt. Then, if Stigand's corrupt, if he's doing the pluralism and simony, then William can get rid of Stigand, okay, and replace him with Lanfranc, as we'll come on to in a minute. And look, in the Bayeux Tapestry here, as it says, one of the most crucial scenes, maybe pause the tape and have a look at this, but it says that Harold was crowned by Stigand, okay? Now, we don't know if he was crowned by Stigand or if he was crowned by Archbishop Aldred of York, and we'll come to that in a minute, but basically, if he was crowned by Stigand, then, as you can see there in the on the tapestry there, if he was crowned by him, then that means that Harold wasn't the legitimate heir in the eyes of the Pope, because Stigand is corrupt, okay? When William comes to England, he gets crowned by Archbishop Aldred of York, a deeply religious man, okay, making sure that he's been legally crowned by the right man in England, all right? So William wants to control England, make sure that they're subservient to him, and that's the church as well, and prove his legitimacy. And I think that's the main consequence of Normanisation, okay? It increases William's control in England by controlling the church, and also because it makes him a more legitimate king by getting rid of a corrupt Archbishop in Stigand, replacing him with a more religious man who is the Pope is happier with. It shows that William is the right man for the job. So that would be my main argument. And you can see now, I'll move on to my second paragraph, which actually agrees with the question. You can see how I've written it, okay, to try and keep my line of reasoning. So I've said, even though the main consequence of Normanisation was to increase William's control and legitimacy in England, Normanisation did still have the consequence of increasing William's control of the church in England. And at the bottom here, I've taken something from the revision guide and something from the textbook of how Lanfranc changed the church to increase his control, okay? Particularly, I think these ones on this side are to do with control, okay? And you can see, Archbishop of Canterbury is now higher up than the Archbishop of York, so he's the main man, and he's superior and controls all of the church. There's regular councils, okay? Lanfranc held 10 to discuss and impose church reforms, to make sure that there was consistency throughout the realm. And this bishopric idea, I mean, somebody checking that the priest, this idea of an archdeacon who's like policing the priest. They've been around before, but the powers are not the same. So that means that Lanfranc's getting complete control of the church, and William with it, okay? He knows, he trusts Lanfranc, they've known each other for years, they admire each other, and he knows that Lanfranc can get this sorted. On the right, it tells you a little bit about how the church became more spiritual, okay? Have a look at that. And all these things do increase the control in England, okay? But as I say, for me, that is a consequence of it. But the main one is to do with William's control and legitimacy, because I think that is the main thing that William gets out of it, okay? To prove that he's the legitimate heir. And by making the church more religious, okay, like here, the spiritual church, by making the church more religious, William's showing again that he is the legitimate heir in the eyes of the Pope, and that's why that's the more important consequence. Okay, on to our third paragraph, and again you can see I've got my line of reasoning in there. Even though the consequence of Normanisation was to increase William's control and legitimacy in England, it did still have the consequence of ensuring that the Pope's power in England was not increased, okay? And this is one of Lanfranc's key aims, really, okay? Lanfranc did support the Pope's reforms. He made sure that the Pope's influence in England did not increase. He made it clear to the Pope that the English Church would not accept every instruction from the Pope. He also told the Pope that as king, William was an independent ruler who did not owe his crown to the Pope. Lanfranc made sure the Pope did not reduce William's power. So, on the one hand, William wants to appear to be legitimate and obviously be religious, but he's not going to even though we're doing that, he's not going to take control, lose any control to the Pope, okay? And as I say, I think that's why even though that's important, that he doesn't, that's one of the consequences, that Lanfranc ensures that William doesn't lose any control to the Pope. I think you can see that this is really a question about control and legitimacy, okay? And that's why I've put that as my main reason, okay? That's exactly right. And that's it. Lanfranc just makes sure the Pope doesn't reduce his power. He says, I cannot give any orders that contradict the King's instructions. Okay? So he's kind of showing how religious he is, but he's also putting a marker down to say, look, I'm not going to give anything away to the Pope, which again proves, I think, this is about control and legitimacy. So as I say, it's a difficult question, this, but I hope that this has helped. Get your 3 paragraphs in. Maybe do a sheet just of notes of what you've put in each one and the line of reasoning. Okay, thanks then, bye.